Hi you guys, I go by the alias Terri Goodwin, and I'm going to make a video today about medical freedom and why your children are in danger here in the United States. I'm going to give a little history about my case and what's happening here in the United States, and the reason I make these videos and the reason I speak out is for people to be aware of what's happening. It is my intention to help save children's lives and families' lives by educating them so that they can make decisions that can help possibly keep their child in their own care instead of being put underneath Child Protective Services. So I've made some past videos before. If you haven't seen my past videos, I'm just going to go over some quick stats. So right now we have something trending, hashtag Save the Children. I've made videos about why this hashtag is being used. We're on a battlefield and primarily we need to be using a certain hashtag, and that's what we're using. It's been very effective. We've reached a level of 1.3 million people trending that hashtag this week, which has been very, very good and important that we do that in this battle. But I want people to know that your children are in danger. Medical kidnapping is something that happened to my family years ago. I've been speaking out about it ever since. And actually, I spoke about a child that was taken before my kids were ever taken. So I wasn't sitting on the sidelines when my kids were taken. I was already aware of atrocities that were happening in the United States. But when my children were taken, it was a choice that I made to speak up and speak out. And because of that, I'm looking at prison time for the rest of my life for telling the truth. But what I want people to know is why your kids are in danger now. When we're talking about COVID and the children going back to school, which for some of them starts as early as next week in different states, a lot of the schools are setting up testing where they're going to be testing your child for COVID. This sets it up for all different kinds of things. First of all, I personally as a parent don't like that they would be testing children because they want to. Okay? And what happens when your child tests positive at school and then you go to pick up your child and they say, I'm sorry, your child tested positive for COVID? They may keep your child, they may put them into Child Protective Services custody, and you may have to go to the court systems, through the court systems in order to get them back, and you may never see them again. I am totally dead serious when I am saying this. I have watched as thousands and thousands of parents, millions over time, have lost their children when Child Protective Services takes them. Now, some of the stats are that 91% of the children removed should never have been removed in the first place by Child Protective Services. That means we're harming more children than we're doing good. So the stats, the government stats are 9% of the parents are accused of sexually or physically abusing their child. The rest of them are taken for other reasons. This is unacceptable. This is unacceptable that they remove these children. I want people to understand that Child Protective Services is indeed a human trafficking ring and the largest one in the world. Okay? In other countries, it's called different things besides CPS, but I'm talking in general about CPS in every single state in the United States and in other countries. If you look at the history of other countries as well, we know they are going through the same kind of thing we are here in the United States. What's even more alarming is the whole COVID thing, because they're going to be reaching out and removing children that they never really had access to before. So I'm trying to let parents know your kids are in danger. What is happening here in the United States is that we are losing our medical freedoms. And I don't think people understand what a big deal this is, but it's a big deal, and you're looking at potentially losing your children for the rest of your life. Now, if you've lost your child, you understand what that means. You go through a court system where everything is rigged. You don't get a jury trial, because we do live in the United States. We're supposed to be getting a jury trial, and we don't. Okay? Now, Let me tell you some of the kind of kids they target, okay? First of all, they get a bonus every time they take the kid and then they adopt them out. Okay, so we're looking at between $8, $10, or $12,000 per child that they adopt out. It is to their financial benefit to steal your child and adopt them out. They also, here in the state of Arizona, get $666,000 per child per year when they're in the system. That's a whole hell of a lot of money. You start multiplying that, you multiply $666,000 times 15,000 children here in the state of Arizona, that's $1 billion. The state of Arizona is getting $1 billion to remove your children, and that's just one little tiny faucet of the money that's coming in for stealing children, okay? Another way that they make money is if there's child support going on in your family and it was ordered through the courts. Once your child is removed by Child Protective Services, let's say there's $1,000 a month child support, then the federal government will match that $1,000. So now the state of Arizona gets $2,000 for taking your child on top of the $666,000 they get per year per child. Okay? Hi guys, thanks for joining. This is kids for cash. It is kids for cash. Another way they make money is to steal children with certain congenital conditions, like my daughters, and then put them in clinical trials or drug trials, and there's funding for having these children go through clinical trials or drug trials. Now, depending on what the drug trial is, we know of many cases where the children were totally and completely tortured. We're talking guinea. If we don't want to test animals, why are we testing our children? They're taking the children and they're totally annihilating our children. Mentally, physically, sexually, okay? The majority of every parent that I've ever known that's had their kid taken and their kids placed into child protective custody ends up physically abused in CPS's care. Now, my children were never physically, emotionally, or sexually abused before they went into CPS, but guess what happened after they were taken? Those very things happened to them. The agency that's supposed to allegedly protect them is the one that is harming our children. And I want people to wrap their brain around this. Like, the human trafficking that CPS does, they get away with it because they are the human traffickers. They are the human traffickers that take our children and sell them. 88% of the children being sold into sex trafficking come from Child Protective Services. Okay? On top of them already being a human trafficking ring, then you have these different faucets of ways that they make money. They also make money off of parents who were veterans, okay, and Social Security. So once the child's removed, if there was Social Security that was being given for that child, let's say, the husband was a veteran and he passed away and the wife's receiving money, when that child goes into the system, they don't keep the money. The parent doesn't. The money goes into CPS and then they get matching federal funds. Don't get me wrong, I'm not anti-government. I do believe that there needs to be some sort of, in theory, people helping other people, and there are born leaders in this world, and we need people to help people. But when the agencies that are in power are destroying our families and destroying our children, we've got a big problem. And this is only getting worse in this world. This is not getting better. This is getting worse. So my children were diagnosed with autism, okay, when they were young. I have two out of my 3 children, my 2 daughters, okay. A lot of the children being removed are children that have autism. A lot of them. 85% of the children in Child Protective Services custody are on medications that are not FDA approved. That means your child once they're in CPS's care, are likely to be put on an unknown drug where they get paid extra money for putting your child on that drug, testing your child for how that child will respond to that drug. When I say human trafficking, I really mean there's a lot of different tentacles to this thing. There's, as I've explained in this video, there's lots of different ways that they can bring in additional cash. And it's really sick. These people are sick in the head. Not to mention all the children that are murdered under Child Protective Services custody. Okay? The lies that are told in the court systems. Now, obviously, the hashtag Save the Children and Save Our Children are trending. And we've reached another level. I would love for people to use hashtag medical kidnapping or hashtag medical kidnap, because that's another faucet we really need to raise awareness about. Okay, it is my daughter's case that started the awareness in the United States for the word medical kidnap. Okay, before that, there were children being medically kidnapped, but there was no word for it. It's myself, my team, and a whole bunch of people that have marketed medical kidnap for the last many years in order to raise awareness of these children that were being taken. I don't know if you've heard of the Nuremberg trials, okay? During Hitler's reign, he removed children that had developmental disabilities, adults and children, and tortured them. I mean tortured them. If you've ever read, hi guys, thanks for joining. If you've ever read anything about the Nuremberg trials, you would understand how sick they were. That's what's going on right now in the United States. Right now in the United States, they are taking children and torturing them. My daughters were two of the kids that they took. This morning, I put on my Facebook page. You have to remember, my documents are already in very important people's hands. The reason I'm sharing this with you is to educate the general public. Okay, to hopefully save some other children so people can be aware. Okay, knowledge is power. So this morning on my Facebook page, I put on there the actual clinical trial that my daughters were removed from my care for. Their objective towards harming my daughters and doing whatever they want to my daughter's body was something I spoke out against. I still speak out against. I don't even know if my daughters, I haven't seen them in 6.5 years. I don't know if they know that this is part of the reason they took the children. Now, several weeks before my children were taken, the doctor who they'd had for years as a gastroenterologist, which is a stomach doctor, started acting really weird. And I was like, okay, what's going on here? And I didn't like the way he was acting. And I was very concerned for the safety of my daughters. So I fired him. I filed a Health and Human Services complaint against him. And in a premeditated retaliation, that doctor removed my daughters. And his intention was to place them into this clinical trial. It's called congenital disorders of glycosylation. It's in their medical documentation. I'm not making this shit up. In fact, they had never even told me that word. The doctors hadn't. But I was so meticulous in getting my daughter's medical records that the very last medical records that I got, which was the day before they were removed from my care, was the genetics paperwork that showed that condition. Nobody had even told me yet. They weren't going to tell me. They were just going to take my kids. But because I was so meticulous about that documentation, I picked it up. And when myself and a team of people went through the documentation, we found this congenital condition. Well, guess what? This congenital condition is so rare that less than 1,000 people in the world have this congenital condition. Yet they still have a drug trial for it. Those are called orphan diseases. What makes the hospitals the most money is diseases that are orphan diseases. So a lot of the children they end up medically kidnapping have orphan diseases, which just basically means very specific congenital or conditions or diseases that are literally so specific that they need them for a certain reason. In my particular case with my daughters, they had a DARPA contract out on them. I don't know if you know what DARPA is. Okay, if you don't know what DARPA is, do some research. DARPA, all capital letters. Okay, DARPA had a contract out for congenital disorders of glycosylation for kids or adults that have that condition, because when they give the medication, it passes the blood-brain barrier different than it does in a neurotypical person. So my daughter's condition that they had, congenital disorders of glycosylation, had a DARPA contract out on it to find children and kids in the United States and take those kids and perform sinister things on them for bioweapons. You think I'm making this up? I'm not making it up. I can prove everything I'm saying. Now, I'm going to go a step further. I don't know what the governors are like in the other states, okay? Except for maybe South Dakota, who has a fantastic governor. But I can tell you here in the state of Arizona, with Governor Doug Ducey, he sits on the board of TGen. Who's TGen? TGen was directly involved with my daughter's case. They will be testifying at trial. They deal with specialized congenital conditions, and they get paid a lot of money for dealing with that. Okay, they deal with a lot of things medically about your body. But they had been targeting and trying to research congenital disorders of glycosylation for years before my daughters came into the picture. And as soon as they came into the picture, they decided they were going to take my daughters. Okay, so they're directly involved. So the governor of the state of Arizona is sitting on the board of that company. He just gave them $1 million. And guess what that company is focusing on along with other things? They're focusing on COVID. You think this isn't all tied together? They are focusing on COVID and the vaccine and developing the vaccine. There are a lot of people working on the vaccine across the United States, but the company directly involved with human trafficking my daughters and removing them for their congenital condition is working with the governor of the state of Arizona, who's giving them money while sitting on their board, and is now working on the COVID thing, which is why I believe that when they arrested me, they wanted me out of the picture, because TGen is totally tied to my case. I have never met another parent. I know they exist, but I've yet to meet another parent where TGen was directly involved with their case. Now, I had friends whose kids went to TGen, but I mean stolen children, because I don't, things have happened since then, so I don't really, connect with those families anymore. Okay. But I know there's got to be other children that were taken where TGen's involved. And in addition, there's certainly a plethora of children that have been taken by Phoenix Children's Hospital as well. So, yes, a definite conflict of interest, absolutely. And I'm sorry for every one of us that have had our children removed by CPS. It is sickening, it's sad, and the federal funding that comes in towards that is disgusting. But I do want to clarify something. Here in the state of Arizona, it's very important for people to understand that CPS in Arizona is called the Department of Child Safety. They are a freestanding for-profit company. They are not part of the government. Okay? So they have illegal contracts, they get federal funding, but they're not part of the government. So I want people to know that, because in our state, that's very specific. It's important to know what the structure is of the companies and the agencies that you're speaking out against. Okay, you'd want to do research for that. In addition, just a reminder for people, if you haven't heard this on one of my past videos, you can get the financials for the judges or anybody in public office. So for instance, my team and I have been able to get financials from the governor here in the state of Arizona that show that he is committing property fraud. He's money laundering through property. So there's all kinds of things. The judge that severed my rights had stock in the pharmaceutical company of the medication that my daughters were prescribed for their autism for years. Okay? The third largest lawsuit in the United States for any pharmaceutical company involves the drug that my children were prescribed for their autism. This is a huge case. It has a lot of stuff tied up in it, and a lot of stuff that's very, it's the meat of medical kidnapping. That's what it is. It's really gets down to the crux of the why, the who, the how. Okay? That's what my case shows. Now, I've written very comprehensive reports that are in very prominent hands. And those reports break down and show the racketeering that's involved in the state of Arizona with the players and who some of them are. Shows all kinds of things. The reports really get into depth. But anyway, the point being that I want people to know your kids are in danger when they go back to school, okay, when they're physically going back on campus. Their intention towards our children really is, if you understand what's really happening in America right now, we're fighting for our very freedoms. We've already lost a lot of them. You guys just don't realize it yet. Okay, maybe some of you do, but a lot of you don't. Okay, why would they take our children and not give us a jury trial? That doesn't even make sense. Does that sound like America to you? So I'm telling you right now, things are getting worse, not better, when it comes to the court system. Doesn't mean we're not raising awareness about everything, but we're in the crux of this battle, and it's really important that you guys spend every day trying to educate the public about our medical freedoms that we're fighting for. Because if we lose, there's no coming back from that. It's gone. It's done. We're using those hashtags might get old for you, but it doesn't get old for the children that are taken. Do you understand? Once they take our children, then they teach them a socialist agenda. They place lies in their head, and they do all kinds of things. They mess with their bodies. We have to speak out. It's not the time to stay silent. It's not the time to pretend like we don't know what's going on. We really, really need to fight. We need to fight for our children. We need to fight for us, and we need to fight for our future. Okay? Yes, likely we are in the total end times. I know we're nearing the end times. I don't know how many years we have left here on earth. I do have an incredible faith in God, though. An incredible faith in God. He has given me strength during the darkest times, even when, you guys, I've been to jail. I've been literally, they tried to kill me in jail, okay? They have handcuffed me to the floor, a shackle, which is chains around your feet, and I've been handcuffed to the floor. Do you understand? I've been through holy living hell, but I have not lost my faith. I've not lost my faith in Jesus Christ. I truly believe that in the end God wins. But it doesn't mean we should sit here and be complicit while they destroy our lives and our freedoms, okay? Because we don't know how much longer we have, really. We don't. We might have 10, 15, 20 years left. Okay, we might have a period of peace for a while. I'm not really sure. I can't say I really know all that for sure, but we certainly should be trying to raise awareness of what's going on and telling the truth. It's not the time to be a fence sitter. We cannot sit on the fence. We cannot. You must choose a side. You must choose a side. This is a very spiritual battle, good versus evil, okay? Hopefully that gave you guys some insight as to what's happening in this world and the fight against medical kidnapping, the fight against child protective services. It is the human trafficking ring. That's where they're getting the kids from, you guys. There are kids that are taken off the street and kidnapped, but the majority of the children they're getting, it's all from child protective services. That's where they're coming from. Okay? And they're removing those children to harm them, not to save them. Okay? Please spread the word, share this video. You guys have a blessed day.